So this is my thematic journal analysis of for the identity readings. The four articles that were associated with identity were the Hagelin and Nelson one, which I think that was the one about cross-dressing in the internet. The second one was the Veil one by Reid and Bertowski. The third one was Lucal, which was about what it means to be gendered. And the last one was Messner's 100% Street. All of these articles focus on the experiences that people go through that define their identity, whether that be sexually, religiously, or as far as their gender goes. That's kind of what encompasses these series of articles. So the first article that I'm going to talk about, because I read it the most recently, was the Messner article about 100%, I think it's called 100% straight or something like that. So essentially this professor, I don't know if he was a professor, I don't know what his profession was. He was a sociologist. He talked about his experiences that he had growing up and basically cites how, I guess, the fluidity of sexuality is. One main experience that he focused on was that when he was an adolescent, he had a crush on a young boy, which eventually turned into aggression because I think of how his feelings were that were really confusing. And so then moving forward, when they were in high school, he also acted out aggressively to this guy, Timmy, because he was smaller and weaker than him. One really interesting concept that I found in this article was the Kinsey, I guess, theory, the fluidity and changeability of sexual desire over the life course. That was something that I really never had thought about, and it made me relate to my experiences, especially when I was younger, or the Freudian theory of bisexuality, just how, I guess, these two theories talk about when you're younger and the sexual desires and urges that you experience as a child may differ from your actual sexuality and the things that you want and hope for when you're an adult. The end of the article then goes into talking about masculinity and his experience that he had interviewing an Olympic athlete who used sports as a means to do gender, I guess, or to hide his sexuality, and that participating in sports was essentially the performance to mask his true gender identity. So that's what that article was about for me. The second article that I'm going to talk about is the Betsy Lucal article, What It Means to Be Gendered Me. This one was about a woman who decided not to do gender. And essentially what that meant for her was not participating in feminine ways, so she dressed like what we perceive as masculine. So she had low-cut hair, she was tall and solidly built, she had non-gender conforming clothes, and it talks about her experiences as being that person that decided not to conform to gender and how people essentially decided to do it for her. A lot of the experiences that she had happened in public spaces like restrooms, and she talked about her interactions at different stores when when people would see her credit card or anything that she tried to use, that would question her identity because she didn't conform to what society views as as feminine. Even though she had a female name, she talked about how people would assume that if she were with another woman, they would assume that they were a couple because she presented herself as what society views as masculine. There was something in this article that I had found really interesting, that I don't know if I necessarily agreed with, but it definitely made me think. I'm trying to find it. I can't find it, but overall, it was interesting to learn about the experiences of someone else who is female but decided not to identify as feminine. And that was something that I really never, I guess, thought about, as identifying as a woman and as female, but not having those feminine attributes that people consider to make you a woman. So that is the second article. The next article that I'm going to talk about is the Reed and Bartkowski article, which is, it discusses Muslim women, and it gives context behind why women wear the veil or the hijab. I guess, I don't know, I guess that's the PC version of that. But essentially it talks about, I learned a lot from this. It gave context to the nature of Islam and what some of the rules are, and why some women choose to wear hijabs and why some don't. Ultimately, this article kind of opened my eyes a little bit because I think that I had very traditionalist views as a Westerner about the Islamic culture. Finding out that some women use the hijab as a way of empowerment, and to promote feminism, I don't know, I thought that that was a really stark contrast into what the Quran says. And because at the beginning of the article it explains what it says in the Quran and why women are to wear hijabs. And so while I appreciate women using this article of clothing as a form of empowerment, I don't understand how it directly translates to that religion. But maybe that's, I don't know, that's me being skeptical, and I guess this is something that I need to do a little bit more research on. But I really appreciate how women are trying to break apart from the patriarchal structurization of Islam. I guess that's the right term. So yeah. The very last article that I'm going to talk about is the article about cross-dressing in the internet. Essentially, hold on, sorry, let me pull that up so I can have my notes. This article was about how cross-dressers use the internet kind of as a safe space to express themselves. That's kind of the overarching view of what I got from this article. However, it also examines how some of these people take on an online identity that isn't one of their own and lets that become something completely else. This is more of a research article that has a lot of qualitative and quantitative data. It wasn't really, I guess I would say, a philosophical article that really created pressing, that didn't give me pressing thoughts like some of the other ones did. It was more of learning information about and the contextualization of the findings that they did as far as this research goes over the 30 different, I think, websites that they had went through. Yeah, all of these articles tied back together all fit in under the overarching umbrella of identity, how people express their identities, how people view their identities within themselves. And they definitely gave me more information than I had before. Thank you.